Hey guys, how's it going? Like Butter here, and today I finally have a build video for you guys. Now, this time around with the Division 2, it's been a little different than with the Division 1 with me. With the Division 1, I kind of just made builds and tried them out, and if they worked, I would post them on YouTube. This time around, I wanted to really make sure I tested builds as much as possible and made sure that I put the research in to make sure that it is the best possible build that I can make. And I want to share with you guys builds that I feel like I put a lot of time and effort into. And I spent hours in the shooting range testing different things on this build to see what worked the best. And I'm really happy to present to you guys this assault rifle build that is absolutely going to be melting enemies both in the dark zone and out in the open world, PvE content, all that stuff. Now, however, this build doesn't work great for conflict, considering, well, the conflict in PvP in general is just littered with high rate of fire vectors and people using like shields and one-shot builds. That's what it is. One-shot sniper builds and vectors are all you're gonna see in PvP at the moment, and if you're using anything else besides those two things, you're putting yourself at a huge advantage. So I wouldn't suggest this in PvP. There are some slight minor changes you can make to make it better for PvP. For example, you definitely want a higher rate of fire weapon. Rate of fire has always been king in PvP, considering if you can put your enemy down as fast as possible before they can get into cover, you're going to most likely get the kill. So remember, this is more of a PvE build, but I'm sure you guys can make modifications to this build to make it even better for PvP if you wanted to. However, like I said, I don't think it's going to be a decent build until, the vector gets changed or nerfed or whatever. But anyways, let's get right into this build. I'm very proud of this build, and I honestly think that this build is very, very good. Okay, so starting off with the Survival Specialist. The Survival Specialist has assault rifle damage, which I think is very important to this build, considering that the base of this build is around raw damage. You're not going to be stacking a ton of crit chance and a ton of crit damage. I saw some people suggesting to just stack crit chance and crit damage on assault rifle builds, and I'm going to show you guys why that is not the greatest idea. Okay, you want to do all your damage through raw damage, and the reason for that is because they added a new thing to Division 2 that wasn't in Division 1 called critical strike range. Now, what critical strike range is the range that you can hit critical strikes. So if you are anywhere less than 10 meters from your target, you are not going to hit any crits at all with an assault rifle. Now, if you go to an SMG or a rifle, there's probably going to be a little bit of a difference here. So for example, the crit strike for a range for rifles is 10 to 60 meters, which is a little bit longer. And then SMGs is 0 to 30 meters. So, as you can see, and then, you got the marksman rifles, which are 10 to 70. So each class has a different critical strike range. Because of this, I was testing things like I tested my Vamp build, which everybody knows about the Vamp build. Wid's made a build that pretty much went viral. Everyone's using it in PvP. I tried using that build, but with an assault rifle, and it just didn't work properly because of that. And I didn't know about this until people on my stream pointed out, you're not critting because they're within 10 meters. So I was like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of crit chance, a little bit of crit damage, not much, and we're going to base the entire build around red stats, just raw damage. I'm talking headshot damage, assault rifle damage, armor percent damage, those kind of things, right? So starting off, I decided, I tried a lot of different assault rifles. I think there are two assault rifles that stick out the most for me for this build, and that is the MK16 and the P416. I think these are the two best assault rifles for this build because obviously they have high damage, and considering they have high damage, they're going to have low RPM, right? But there's a solution in this build for the low RPM that we're going to talk about here in a second. And I think you could also try this build with some other assault rifles if you wanted to, but I just don't think it works well enough because, if you're using a super high rate of fire assault rifle, you're not going to output the huge amounts of damage per bullet, which is exactly what we want to do. Because remember, this is a PvE build, so what we want is we want to be consistently beaming the NPCs as much as we possibly can. And with the lower rate of fire and the huge amount of stability and accuracy we have, we can sit there and continuously just pound NPCs over and over and over again. Gachi base. All right. So I'm going to show you guys what I have on for mods. I am using the Russian Red Dot site, which is minus damage to elites plus 10% critical hit damage. I tested many different sites up here, including crit chance and stuff. Nothing seemed to work as good as this, because remember, this is built around accuracy and stability. We really don't want any attachments that are giving us negative accuracy or stability. I'll take a hit on a damage to elites because you're not always fighting against damage to elites, but not only that, we're going to compensate for that through our build a lot. We're still going to have plus 50% damage to elites on this build. So the large suppressor is really important because that plus 20% accuracy is insane. There's some people out there that think accuracy and stability isn't working currently. I can promise you I've tested so many different attachments, so many different builds, so many different assault rifles. Stability and accuracy is 100% functioning in this game. Even if it doesn't say it on the spreadsheet or on your character sheet, it is working. Now, of course, if you have a really, really high accuracy weapon and you add accuracy to it, you're not going to notice as big of a difference because the accuracy is already almost maxed. You know, so the difference between 77% accuracy and 78% accuracy or 79% accuracy, you're not going to notice a huge difference. What you do notice a huge difference on are the lower accuracy weapons that you stack accuracy on. You're going to see a huge difference in the bloom of your crosshair. Now, if you are still confused about like weapon attachments and what you should use, I have a video that I posted a couple of days ago where I go over the attachments and what accuracy, stability, optimal range does, all those things. So if you need to watch that, be sure to watch that. And I'm using a laser pointer here for the plus 10% critical hit chance because stability is the one thing as a PC player that you can really afford to give up. Now, if you're playing on console and you feel like the stability of this weapon is a little too hard to control, you can try something else here except the minus, 10% stability. So if you really needed it, you could go angle grip, although I wouldn't recommend it because accuracy is really, really super important. But you could do, I don't know, some other stuff. You could do crit damage here if you really wanted to, if you wanted to sacrifice some reload speed. But personally, I think the 10% crit chance here does really well. I don't value 10 crit damage over 10 crit chance because you got to remember crit chance has a base modifier anyways. So a little bit of crit chance is always going to help you hit those those larger amounts of damage. And or you could use the vertical grip if you wanted to. If you felt like your gun needs a little more accuracy, you could definitely do that. But I decided to go with the 10% crit chance because I feel like that's a lot of bang for my buck. And then I'm using the extended mag, which is going to give minus 10% rate of fire, which is why on your rifle you really need to have Allegro. You need to have Allegro on this build if you're using a slower rate of fire weapon. What Allegro is going to do is it's going to basically offset the minus rate of fire here because the rate of fire here is going to be pretty damn important. And you're going to see here when I show you the second weapon, which is the Chatterbox, this rate of fire is really, really going to get out of control. And then as your third talent, this really doesn't matter much. The third talents in this game aren't great, but what you could do if you really wanted to, I think there's one called Rooted, where you get increased healing and something like that when you are in cover. It's not bad, but the third talent, for the most part, at this point, the talents are really weak. They don't mean much. The first talent is really what you're looking for, and I've tested so many different talents with this build, and the only one that I think is good with how many red stats we have is the close and personal. Getting a kill within 7 meters grants plus 50% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Basically, if you kill an enemy that's within 7 meters of you, you're going to absolutely melt for the next 5 seconds. Now, the reason I like this talent so much over everything else is because it doesn't have a cooldown. Now, if this could only happen once every 20 seconds, that'd be different. But the fact that you can keep refreshing this over and over, and how much NPCs kind of rush you in this game, and how they're trying to flank you and they're constantly running up to you, this talent trumps all the other talents in the game for this specific build, and I can promise you that. I know a lot of people are using like Strained and stuff. Strained is not, absolutely not what you want on an assault rifle build, and I tested this and I learned this myself, because what happens is you have a low amount of red stats, which means you have a low amount of base damage. So what you're doing is you're basically like hoping that all your damage goes through critical strikes, and you're just not going to hit crits enough because of that 10 to 45 meter range. It's just not worth it. Trust me on this. Make sure to go with close and personal on this assault rifle build if you really want to have a large amount of damage output. So that's for the first weapon. Second weapon is pretty obvious here, since we need to make up for that really low rate of fire that the MK16 has. This is the Chatterbox. This is an exotic. There's a lot of people out there that have tutorials on how to get the Chatterbox if you don't have it already. It's basically an exotic quest. You go through, you find parts, and then you find the blueprint and you craft the blueprint. Basically, what you're using this for is Blabbermouth, which states, while holstered, reloading the weapon within 5 seconds of a kill grants 20% rate of fire for 10 seconds. That 20% rate of fire is going to make this thing absolutely destroy, because what it's going to do is it's going to up it from like, I don't know, 625 RPM up to like in the 700s. And what that's going to do is you're going, like, the game... This weapon isn't meant to have high rate of fire because of how high the base damage is. So what you're doing is you're getting this refresh of 20% rate of fire, and this weapon is absolutely beaming NPCs. So like what you're going to see is you're going to get a kill, and then you're going to have the weapon damage from close and personal, and then you're going to have the rate of fire from the Chatterbox. And those two things together, after you reload, you're going to basically have 60 rounds of a full mag of just absolute beam potential, and you're going to just melt through NPCs. It's insane. I've been testing it on my stream for the last couple of days. People have been asking me, you know, what build I've been using, and so I'm finally doing this. And then obviously on your pistol, you want to have a holstered talent, because although pistols are pretty decent in this game, they actually aren't bad. They did a good job making them pretty useful. You definitely want to have something holstered here. I have greased, which allows me to swap in between my Chatterbox and my assault rifle. Like, for example, if I use all my assault rifle bullets and there's an NPC charging me, a lot of times this will let me quickly switch to my Chatterbox and take them out, because the Chatterbox definitely isn't bad for getting a quick kill if they're up close. But like, you know, you're not going to be using the Chatterbox most of the time. You're going to be using the MK16 for the majority of your damage. Okay, so let's go through the gear pieces. So for the gear pieces, you are going to have a Wyvern mask. The reason I went with Wyvern here is because I value the drone skill power, the crit chance, and the crit damage. Even on an AR, I value this over any other brand sets in the game for this specific build. Now, if there was a brand set that gave me, you know, assault rifle damage, and then it gave me like headshot damage or something, I would definitely go for that. But in my opinion, I think Wyvern literally fits this perfectly. It gives you a little bit of extra crit chance, gives you a little bit of extra crit damage, but the drone skill power is really what's going to be important in this build, because you're going to be using a repairer drone, and then in PvP, you're going to be using the deflector drone, because the deflector drone is really popular in PvP right now, and that extra drone skill power is going to allow it to heal you a little bit better. So, and you know, we're going to have a little bit of skill power too. Like 722 skill power isn't a ton, but it's enough to really, like, you can feel the heal. But most of your healing is going to be done through armor kits, which we also have a solution to that. So if you're doing PvE, you obviously want damage to elites here. And I have damage to elites as a major attribute as well, because like I said, I am trying to get as much damage to elites as I can to offset the damage to elites that we're losing on our attributes. And then I have skill power, and let's go to the second piece. Now this piece is important. This is probably the most important talent in the game at its current time. And that is Berserk, plus 10% weapon damage for 10% of your armor depleted, which means if I have no armor, I am going to get 100% weapon damage with Berserk. Now you're starting to see here how like the weapon damage stacking can get a little insane, right? So you got Berserk, you got the say 100% weapon damage, then you have 50% weapon damage from close and personal. You have that little bit of crit chance, you have that little bit of crit damage, you have the rate of fire from the Chatterbox. You're starting to see here how like all of these things start stacking up. And then for a secondary, I also have damage to elites here. And then an offensive mod, I have weapon damage, optimal range, and weapon handling. Like I said, weapon handling is so important in this build, and I will take weapon handling at any turn that I can. If you don't know what weapon handling is, by the way, this has been confirmed by a developer. It's basically a small amount of all of the things that make up any type of like, you know, switching between weapons, accuracy, stability, all those things all in one stat. So think of it as like all resist in Division 1, how it gave you a little bit of each status effect resistance. Well, weapon handling gives you a little bit of all those weapon handling stats. But really just, you know, the optimal range and the headshot damage is kind of nice there. Now, would it be better here to have a talent instead of a mod slot? Like, you probably could go, you know, I don't know. The mod slots don't feel super important right now, but, you know, they help, right? It can't hurt. So if we go down here, we're going to go to our holster. This is the one piece in the set that I think can get a little bit better because we do have a offensive system mod here. We could have another, there's a couple of really good ones, like for example, talents like this, critical, or you can get 8% crit chance as a talent, as a major attribute as well, or as I think it's a passive attribute. But so this part could be a little bit better, but what we're doing here is we're using 2-piece Heraldry, and the reason we're doing that is for the headshot damage and the accuracy. Accuracy is so important on assault rifles. I can't stress it enough, guys. The accuracy reduces the amount of bloom you have when you're shooting your rifle, which means if your bloom is super small, you can just unload into NPCs and not miss any shots because you can control where your bullets are going. It's crazy. So we do have a little bit of crit chance here. I had a holster drop up to like 21% critical hit damage the other day. Is it this one here? No, it's not. I think it's this one. Yeah, look at this. 21% crit damage, 8% crit damage on talent. So that's 29% crit damage total on that. So I'm definitely going to put a SMG build around that. But SMG builds are so boring right now because it's literally just, I almost said brutal. It's literally just Berserk and Safeguard, and they're using Clutch on gloves, and it's the same thing every single time. It's a little boring, but so yeah. So remember, with this build, you're looking for a Wyvern face mask, you're looking for a Wyvern backpack, Wyvern knee pads. However, don't forget these are interchangeable. Some brand sets don't go on certain things. There's a spreadsheet going around that I guess I could put a link to in the description if you want to see which sets have which talents or which weapons have certain things, like all that stuff. It shows you everything. But for example, like with the Heraldry set, I don't think Heraldry makes every single portion. Like I've never seen an Heraldry face mask or like a Wyvern holster. Oh no, Wyvern holster is a thing. Okay, so Wyvern goes on like 4 out of the 6 sets, I think. So you can't get Wyvern gloves or Wyvern vests. Like basically you can also put, what I'm trying to get at here is you can put an Heraldry backpack on, and then you can put a Wyvern holster on, right? Like it doesn't matter as long as you have 3 Wyvern, 2 Heraldry, and one of these. This is really important, the Fenris, which is going to give you the assault rifle damage. You want to have that. So while we're here, we might as well look at this. I got critical hit damage, weapon damage, headshot damage. You want all raw damage here as much as you can. Now, instead of critical hit damage here, I would like to have crit chance, but it is what it is, you know, the damage to elites, all that stuff. And then into my holster, or we already went over that, but I feel like I forgot something. But then we went over the holster. Remember, you can have a better thing here instead of a mod slot, which I think I'd rather have like, in this scenario, I'd rather have like critical hit damage. But there's a couple different ones you can get. Like this one has hard hitting, which probably wouldn't be terrible either. I think 15% damage to elites would be a little bit more helpful than this offensive mod, but like I said, this build isn't perfect yet, but it's pretty damn good, and I'm pretty proud of it. So On my backpack, I also have more damage to elites. Now, efficient. Now, this is very important with this build because, like I said, a lot of the times you're going to be using armor kits to heal because this is a very glass canny build. It is. It's very glass canny. And because of that, you're going to be using a lot of armor kits to try to stay alive. So what efficient does is it gives you a 50% chance to not consume an armor kit. This is absolutely huge. This is such a huge thing to have because when you're using armor kits so frequently, you're going to run out really fast. Having a 50% chance to not consume an armor kit is going to basically prolong the amount of armor kits that you have. And remember, since we don't have, we're not running clutch, efficient is really good because it doesn't hurt to armor up. Like with clutch, you kind of want to always try to be face tanking and you want to stack health on everything. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you more of an armor pool because you can get behind cover, you can reset, and then go up. Because remember, what this build's going to do is it's going to melt an enemy, you're going to get behind cover and reload. It's going to melt another enemy, you're going to get, like, you're not going to be up there just running out and face tanking like you can with the SMG build currently. And so what this is going to allow you to do, it's going to allow you to do more higher DPS, but in a safer spot. So efficient is really important, and that is the solution to you using a lot of armor kits. So because of that, like the healer drone is going to help a little bit, but what this allows you to do is if you want to throw your healer drone over to another teammate to heal them, you don't have to worry about being straight out of heals whatsoever because you're going to be able to use a lot of armor kits. Okay, on my gloves, this is something I spent so much time on. I spent so, like, you wouldn't notice, like, if you're just going through, but I spent so much time on the gloves, man. I had two different types of gloves that I was messing with. So I had this, which has precise, which gives me headshot damage, which also gives me crit chance on the gloves. Now, this is where I was like kind of freaking out because I was like, dude, 15% headshot damage sounds amazing. Like, it really does. So do I go for the 15% headshot damage and the 5% crit chance? Or on these gloves, do I go for assault rifle and then this talent was irrelevant, basically. It was something else that I ended up rolling. But after testing, the assault rifle damage is 100% worth. I think it lowers the headshot damage on my shots by like 600 damage or something, but it increases my body damage by like 2,000. So this is actually really worth taking assault rifle damage here on gloves, because our build is based around that raw damage. Now, for talents, I tried a bunch of different talents. I was even thinking about putting clutch here because I was like, dude, there's just no other good talents. So what I decided to do was try obliterate. Now, what obliterate does is it gives you 25% critical hit damage when you deplete an enemy's armor. Now, at first I was like, well, that's stupid. When you deplete their armor, they're low health anyways. You gotta see how much damage this does when you deplete their armor. It's because it's stacking with the assault rifle passive, which is like extra health damage. It's insane. Like, it's literally like 2 shots to an NPC when their armor's depleted. When this procs, like if you hit a crit, it literally hits their whole health bar. It's nuts. So I actually think that this isn't terrible to run. There's some other ones that I was considering trying, but all of them required you to have a low amount of red stats. So I was like, yeah, like this is probably the best thing you can have here. Now, however, if you can get gloves with assault rifle damage and headshot damage here as a minor stat, that's probably the best case scenario. But I don't think I'm that lucky. Maybe someday I'll get that, but it's definitely not looking like it today. So that's what we have for now. And then my Wyvern Kneepads, this attribute here, cooldown reduction isn't great. I much rather have, crit chance or crit damage or weapon damage or whatever can go in this slot that's a red stat pretty much. So that's something that my build can improve on. But whenever I get this talent right here, Braced, which is amazing, by the way, whenever I get this talent, it never seems to have the crit chance that I want on it or the crit damage. It sucks. I'm unlucky. I'm unlucky, Baby Rage. But yeah, Braced is phenomenal. It is such a good talent because you're going to be using this build from cover most of the time, And what braced allows you to do is it gives you even more weapon handling, which is going to turn your gun into an absolute laser. So I want to show you here in a second, just to give you a basic idea of how the weapons shoot outside of cover. You see how that dot's kind of jumping around quite a bit, but you won't notice it when you're shooting NPCs. You're gonna be hitting a lot of shots. Now watch in cover. Watch the difference. Look at how close to the center that dot is staying, and even the stability. Ready? So that's the stability out of cover. All right, this is the stability in cover. Do you see how it's like, it's just, it makes the gun shoot so much smoother. It's great. So this talent is probably one of the most important knee pad talents that I've seen. There's a lot of other ones that you could try if you want, but this works the best for me just because the build is entirely around just beaming them. And this has an offensive stat here, which is optimal range, headshot damage, weapon damage. You know, like I said, you're just trying to go raw damage on as many things as you can. Now for skills, you want to use the Revive Hive, which right now, like the add-ons are pretty broken for the most part. I do have one that's active because it's a low, like basically to get mods active on skills right now without having to put like 7k skill power on your build. You basically have to use low level mods. So if you really wanted to, you could go try to find some low level mods, make a second character or something and save like level 19 purples. And then just, you know, use those on your build. But the mod thing's getting fixed soon, so it's probably not worth it. And then, like I said, I'm using the repair drone, and that 15% skill power is really going to help that drone heal you more often. So that's definitely important. But I'm pretty proud of this build, man. It's really, really strong. I'm gonna be using it pretty much all day today on stream. And I'm just going to be trying to get through like some of the harder PvE content to make sure there can't be any like adjustments being made. But you can see here, like here, let's put an elite down. Watch the absolute crazy damage that you can do without any of my talents proccing. You got to remember, this is with no talents proccing here. Now with the talents proccing, with close and personal, and I think it's like close and personal and then berserk and stuff, your AR can start doing like over 100,000 per shot. And it's absolutely insane. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. It took me a very long time to make this build as good as it possibly could. Like I said, there are some minor changes that can be made, but I'm pretty proud of it, man. I'm pretty proud of it. And I think it's nice that it's a little bit different from what everyone else is building. At least I haven't seen anyone using this build. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy that. And be sure to drop the video a like if you did enjoy, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.